Hi, everyone. Good afternoon to the last session of the last day. Thank you so much for coming to our session. It's such a pleasure to see you. We're going to have fun. We're going to have a nice, relaxed time, and we're going to be talking through this very interesting topic. So I'm going to ask, if you want to, please feel free to come forward, to move forward if you want to get a better view for all those sitting further back, and we'll feel a bit more cozy. So my name is Grace Kaur. Just wanted to introduce myself. I work for the Equinix, for Equinix Inc. We are a data center services and interconnection company. And we are based in the US, in San Francisco. And we have gathered some truly brilliant minds today to come and talk about this topic, which is the blend of AI and human insight to unlock transformative learning. During this conversation, we'll talk about AI in education. So get ready, all your questions. We've got a question and answer session at the end. We will also flash the QR code soon. Our expert panelists come from EDC and data.org, and they will share their insights, and I will first introduce myself and then give them time to introduce themselves. So about myself, again, I work in the global contracts team at Equinix, and I lead a global team, a fantastic global team of attorneys. Beyond my work in global contracts, and what I'm passionate about is really my board role with the Equinix Foundation. The Equinix Foundation is the philanthropic arm of Equinix, and it's an organization driven by a truly inspiring vision to create a more accessible, sustainable, and interconnected digital future for everyone, everywhere. For me and for Equinix, advancing digital equity in communities around the world is part of our purpose. It's not just our passion. So I'm grateful to be working with PAA and with these fantastic ladies up here. We've just met today, but I feel that we have got such a connection. Thank you so much. And we've already decided that there are areas that we can partner and work more together with, and we're going to keep in touch. So on the theme of partnerships, we're already there, right? And now I'd like to ask you to introduce yourselves. So perhaps I can ask Komeki to kick off, and if you could introduce yourself and your organization.
Thank you, Grace, for inviting me to speak today to my fellow panelists. I look forward to the conversation that we have today. I am Kormiki Whitley. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at data.org, where I lead our financial inclusion work in the US and in Southeast Asia. I come to this work with a background of financial services, mortgages, as well as financial literacy for aging populations and youth, especially in rural areas. Data.org is on a goal to train 1 million purpose-driven social data practitioners. We do that through our Capacity Accelerator Network and our Global Innovative Challenges. We're accelerating the power of data and AI to drive social impact. And I look forward to the insights we talk about today around education and AI and the future of that.
Satya.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Satya Lankapin from Education Development Center, or EDC. We are a global nonprofit organization. We are working to improve education, support health, and expand economic opportunity across the world. As Chief of Party of EDC, I lead the ground implementation of several EDC projects in Southeast Asia, including High Touch High Tech for All initiative. For High Touch High Tech for All initiative, it's part of a Learning Generation Initiative, formerly known as Education Commission, for those of you who know the history. With High Touch High Tech, we are pairing AI power technology with strong teacher support in order to improve math outcome. Beyond High Touch High Tech, I also work in several other AI-related projects in Southeast Asia, In the Philippines, we work with indigenous communities to train their youth to gather data from their community. In order to build understanding about data sovereignty and also get them to realize that their contribution of their data into the AI system will help them get their voice heard and represented fairly in the AI system. We also work with, piloted an AI chatbot that promote understanding of mental health, also in the Philippines. The chatbot is only in English right now, but from that pilot, we are thinking about expanding to other languages as well. This chatbot helped the youth in the Philippines understand how they can address different challenges in mental health. In Indonesia and Thailand, we are working on data-driven green entrepreneurship. This is involved training youth to use generative AI and mapping technology to understand and improve agriculture value chain. In Vietnam, we are working with underprivileged youth to grow their green skills and future skills, including AI literacy. But for today, I'm really excited to be here to share about high touch, high tech and how AI technology and teacher support can improve math learning. Thank you.
Great, thank you. You both have a wealth of experience, and can I just say I love your title, Chief of Party. That's what I want to. I want that title too. Why don't we just turn to the questions, right? And I'm going to kick off with a little bit. Let me paint a picture. The learning generation in 2016 said that there is an ever-worsening education crisis. Basically, if we don't do anything, children and youth, half of the children and youth, 1.6 billion, half of that will not be in school and learning. I think that's sort of the burning platform, the way that I see it. And we've heard that at this point in time, there's so much progress in science and so many new things coming out. AI is just one of them. And then we've also got the backdrop of all the crisis, global crisis happening. So zooming in, let's zoom into the broad implications of AI and the future of education. I'm going to ask questions in three big buckets. The first one is kind of the big picture of AI in education. And perhaps maybe Satya, we can start with you. How do you see AI transforming education in the next 5 years, particularly in low resource settings and to reach underserved youth?
Thank you, Grace. For me, in the next 5 years, I see a lot of potential for AI to reshape how we reach and support underserved youth, especially in low resource settings. With high touch, high tech, which we are generally supported by Equinix Foundation, we work in Philippines and Cambodia to transform classroom, and we already see the shift from the traditional one-size-fits-all approach into more personalized learning. This is where we use AI-empowered technology, like the Math Pathway platform in Cambodia and also the Khan Academy Philippines. We use this high-tech component to enhance learning, but we also couple that or pair that with the high-touch support in the classroom by the teachers. And only with when the two components, high touch, high tech, goes together, we see this shift into more personalized learning. The students learn at their own pace and get the support, the right support at the right time. So we are seeing this as a great opportunity for us to reach into underserved classrooms. So for me, in 5 years, I see AI as a catalyst of equity. And we can only make that happen if the teachers are supported, if the curriculum is customized and localized, and if the system is addressing equity from the start, not as an afterthought.
Perfect, that makes a lot of sense. Komeki, AI is often seen as a double-edged sword. how do we ensure that AI-driven education solutions enhance equity rather than widening that gap?
I think that's a great question, Grace. And earlier you said there's a 1.6 billion education divide. I would also like to offer, before we can even talk about equity, there's a 2.6 billion divide that are people that are not even connected to the internet. That is a huge number. Before we even talk about AI, you have to figure out how to connect people on the internet. So how do we address that first? And so we at data.org, we run several AI challenges to foster ideas, find ideas that are happening in the community that can be supported. And one of those is the Mississippi AI Collaborative. They are doing very interesting work by building trainer that trains each other. So how do they build a platform to support training the trainers, right? And so these trainers are training other teachers how to incorporate data and AI in low resource rural areas. A little bit about Mississippi, 95% of their populations are below poverty. And so as you can imagine, the education there in rural areas are lacking, especially in data and AI. So the Mississippi AI Collaborative started off with 10 people in their training program. Those 10 people then trained 25 people. Now we're excited to say they have now trained over 1,000 and are moving to another state. That is powerful because now teachers have the ability to upskill themselves with data and AI that they're learning from chatbots and different mediums there, but they're also able to tailor curriculum. I think the other piece that comes out of that is that teachers see what they can do for their students, that data and AI can do for their students. So now they're also advocates, right? So they're now going to their state legislators. They're going to their community to say, we need to make sure that our students are trained in data and AI, not for right now, but for the workforce, because we know that is the workforce. So how do you move from thinking about equity to making sure that people are online to even be able to get some of those resources? So a way that we are thinking about doing that is supporting organizations like Mississippi Collaborative to make sure that teachers are trained in data and AI, and then how do they support others to do that so that those learnings can be transferred to other states in the US, but also outside of the state. Data.org is a global organization, and we don't believe that information, great ideas, should stay in one pocket. It should be amplified and then go to different communities, making sure there is a local context, of course, but also how can those learnings from Mississippi be transferred to Kenya? How can it be transferred to Singapore? So that is what I think the power is. We've got to figure out how to make sure that we are training the teachers, and then we can start to think about how we equity comes into that.
So I love how both of you have touched on so many of these very big themes of scalability and partnerships and transferable knowledge, but also contextualizing in the local context as to what makes sense in the environment. So love it. Thank you. Let's go to personalized learning, because I think the second big opportunity for us is personalizing this learning. Let's start with you, Satya. So my question for you is, considering the integration of AI into learning solutions across Asia, could you share any specific success stories of AI-enabled learning, and how can corporate philanthropy in digital infrastructure best support the equitable deployment of those solutions?
Thank you, Grace. Before I go into the success story, let me walk you through the learning journey of a high-touch, high-tech learner. So imagine Dara. Let's call him Dara. It's not a real name. So he's a 7th grader in Cambodia classroom. His classroom has about 50 students, 50, 60, fluctuating, depending on who skipped the class. His teacher is brand new. She just graduated and in a major which is not mathematics. When Dara come to a high-touch, high-tech classroom, he start by doing a diagnostic test to capture his current level of his mathematics. And in that diagnostic test, the system identified that there are some questions that a fourth grader supposed to be able to do, but then Dara has this gap in the knowledge. So after that diagnostic test, the system has his understanding or conceptual profile, and then they customize the next lesson to be at just the right level for him to be able to learn and succeed. So Dara would go through this personalized system and interact with the system, and his teacher would be checking on the progress of all the students in the class, not just Dara. So they each would have different sets of assignments and questions to go through. So they would spend 2 hours a week on the computer lab, and then in the normal classroom, they will get to do more interactive, more group work, more real-world math. His teachers would get suggestions from the system and then would bring up activities that are stimulating and promoting higher order thinking. The skills like problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, because those are the skills that if we want to produce the next generation of knowledge creators, that's needed. You know, we don't want to just create students that just score the highest in the math test, but we want someone who really understands math to be able to become maybe an AI engineer or progress in other STEM and non-STEM career. So they do that in the normal classroom. And every 2 weeks, all the students would get an adaptive test, and this adaptive test is different depending on the student's level and where they progress in their learning journey. And from that adaptive test, Dara's teacher can see from her dashboard what are the key issues where most of the students are struggle, and the system suggests mini lessons where she can call in a few students to sit together and work on some math problems together. So she gives targeted support at the right time. So that's the kind of AI-driven system that we are providing in schools in low-income areas in Cambodia. So we are already seeing initial success, although we have an external evaluator team working on the impact research on high-touch, high-tech, and the results would come out later in the year. But on the ground, we are also seeing changes already. The students are more engaged, the teachers feel more empowered, and we see that we are providing inclusive education for the students who have different learning needs. So to your question about success story, we are already seeing classroom in Cambodia where the students have very low exposure to technology. At the very beginning, the teacher, they have to come together and also use adaptive strategy actually to have special lesson plan for how to turn on and off a computer, how do students log into a browser to access the system, and even how to use the mouse. You know, that's the level of digital divide that we are experiencing. But then once the high-touch, high-tech program is rolling out, we start to see that the students arrive in the class early, and the ones that are really quiet become more participating in the classroom. They talk math, right? And they explain the math lesson to their friends. They are helping each other learn. We are seeing attendance going up, and we even see the students who always often skip class asked to stay behind to do more math. Right, so that's the kind of change that we are seeing in Cambodia. In the Philippines, it's a different level of help actually, because in the rural schools in the Philippines that we are working with, they don't even have computers or internet for the classroom. So we work with our partner Ayala Foundation in the Philippines to help them install Starlink, the system that get the school to connect to the internet, and also provide one-on-one tablets so that all the students in the schools have their own device to study math. And that's also something that the community is really, it's something that they embrace. They feel that their kids are valued, and they come to school in a school assembly just to observe this handover of the tablets. So it's a big shift for the teachers to go from no technology, no connectivity, into using technology in classroom. It's also a big shift from talking math all the time, like the teacher's voice being the only voice in the classroom, to become the facilitator and help the learners actually solve the problems by guiding them rather than telling them. So we are not claiming that we are there yet. Some teachers spend 30 years teaching in certain ways, so it would take time for them to shift. But we are also hearing that they feel so empowered with these tools and technology that allow them to make the students' learning visible, right? And they can design the way that they could tackle the students that are having trouble. Khan Academy, the platform that we use in the Philippines, suggests remedial activities, multimedia, songs, and games. And they, in the Philippines, they really enjoy using games and songs to teach math. So we are seeing a big change in the classroom. We are also seeing the community coming together, the local government unit, and also the village leaders who are from indigenous community really want to expand high-touch, high-tech to more schools, even before we start mentioning it. So those are the success stories that we are seeing that make us really feel like we want to do more. So to your question about what philanthropic or corporates can support, I think it would be really helpful to expand the opportunity for connectivity and device, make sure that data infrastructure is there. Second would be to invest in teacher development, because it's something that we cannot just do once and hope that everything would be perfect, right? It's a continuous process. And in the school, we still need to provide coaching and the learning, building the learning community. Some teachers take up the new technology very fast. Some teachers would want to take time and more support. Thirdly, I think we need to think about sustainable funding, thinking about long-term, about how we want to expand and sustain, thinking about the way we want to address the hardest, furthest, and most limited classroom. Because if we can make it happen in those kind of classroom, I think we can make it happen everywhere.
Wow, thank you. And I really enjoyed when we were talking how Satya was saying that some of these are in the mountains. You visited some of these schools in the mountains, and you've got to hike in, and they're really far away. And so some of the funding actually goes to buying equipment like devices, like laptops and handphones, and getting people to connect. And that in itself is they've never seen it, they've never used it, right? That in itself is fantastic. So thank you. Komeki, question for you. What are the primary challenges in scaling AI-enhanced learning within underserved communities, especially concerning data privacy, digital access, and teacher readiness? A lot of the themes that Satya just mentioned.
It's funny, I will attest that Satya and I just met earlier this morning, but there are several themes that you're going to hear from the pieces I talk about and what she's talking about, because I think they just ring true wherever you are in the globe. So Data.org, we have an approach of being globally informed and locally led. We have 5 capacity accelerator networks from the US, Latin America, Africa, India, and our newest hub here in Singapore. And I believe that you have to prioritize community when you're thinking about solutions. And that's an imperative when you're thinking about education. People closest to the problem need to be part of the solution, and the solution can't be made around them. That is vital. You heard Satya talk about how they've had to adapt their strategy based on where they are and what the community needs. That is what you're gonna need to be successful. But I can't go far without talking about some of the challenges, right? And some of those that data.org has seen around challenges, especially in underserved communities, are, you have learnings from maybe urban areas, well-resourced areas that are being dropped into rural areas or low-income areas, that you don't have the same kind of problems. You can't use the same type of strategies to engage teachers and students. You need different strategies depending on where you're at. You need tablets, you need internet access before you can even talk about, here's a chat bot, right? And so I just want to echo that. Satya also talked about mentorship for teachers, isolation of teachers. This is new technology. And so then how do you think about upskilling teachers to make sure that they know how to use the technology and that they don't have fear of using technology? I think a lot of early talks around data and AI is that many jobs are going to be displaced. So there was fear that many teachers are going to lose their job because of data and AI. Right. But what we've heard from teachers is that actually it's made them better teachers, because now they have access to either digital solutions. Satya talked about different work plans, especially for different abilities. How great is it that you can have different worksheets, different lesson plans for people that have different abilities, and essentially a free resource to you? That is a great use of data and AI. I would also be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that one of the biggest barriers to AI is that, of course, the AI systems are developed on 2 major languages right now. So it leaves out a lot of the population. It leaves out a lot of the cultural context that you need to be very successful in communities, right? So what is beneficial in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm from, may not translate to another place. And so we have to make sure that cultural context is a part of that. And a lot of our chatbots and generative AI do not consider that currently. I will say, though, that there is hope. Another example that I would like to bring up is one of our generative AI skills challenge awardees that through the Microsoft Innovative Challenge. And data.org does these innovative grand challenges where we partner with philanthropy or private corporations to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. And I would say education is one of those, right? And how do we continue to make sure that our workforce is prepared in this digital economy? And one of those awardees is called the Tipping Point. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I bring that up is because the Tipping Point is an organization out of Greece. And their organization developed a chatbot for rural educators in Greece. And what's interesting about their chatbot is that they said, we want to make sure that teachers have local languages. So this chatbot has all dictionary terms, they have prompts, all in local languages, right? And so how effective is that a teacher in a rural area in Greece can now go to this chatbot, ask a question in their local language, and be able to get a good answer in the cultural context? That is a great use of data and AI. That's transformative. The other piece that I would say that the Tipping Point has done very well is to make sure that they have mentorship through the chatbot, right? And so how can we make sure, again, teachers have the information that is timely and relevant for their communities. I want to continue to go back to that the communities have to be so vital to developing the solution and to be part of that. I am always reminded of one of the skills challenge winners of the tipping point, giving us feedback that the teachers, again, like I said earlier, were scared that they were going to lose their jobs. But now actually they've been able to be more effective as teachers now that they have this opportunity, they have this in hand, and that that's been a big help to them, especially integrating cultural context to their lesson plans.
Perfect, thank you. Let's wind up with the last couple of questions, and I'm looking at the future now. So I'm going to ask you, Satya, what needs to happen at the policy and funding and implementation levels to scale AI-enabled personalized learning effectively?
Thank you, Grace. This is an important question, and I need to look at my note for this one because I don't want to miss anything. From our experience from High Touch High Tech, we feel that this is an iterative process. So it's the continuation of the programming and funding. So I think at the policy level, we want to make sure that we design the policy that's inclusive and equitable from the beginning, set aside the budget and funding to not only set up the infrastructure and device availability, and if the government doesn't have enough funding, they need to leverage partners and philanthropy maybe to help. And that funding design need to also include teacher professional development and a continuous process, not just a one-off. They also need to set aside budget to develop and adapt curriculum content. So at the policy level, the focus needs to be at the learning outcome, not only the technology system. And from what we are seeing in Cambodia and the Philippines, we are now see the pilot transforming into scale, right? So I think we need funding from government and other sources to continue so that we can continue to create evidence, use the reiteration process, and make sure that in each cycle that we implement, there's an improvement that built in, so that the system approach that we are using is stronger each time we implement.
Great, thank you. And Komeki, what advice would you give corporate leaders, educators, and policymakers looking to integrate AI into our education systems?
Move at the speed of trust and not technology. Even though I would say technology is moving very fast, you still have to have partnership with community. You have to have partnerships to make sure that solutions are sustainable and that they are impactful. You can't do that if you're moving along, right? I would also say that we need to build authentic partnerships. That means bringing people in the beginning, not after you develop your solution and want them to co-sign on it. That's the key, right? It's before. I would also say that we need all sectors to participate. Satya said it earlier, but we need government. We need academia. We are working with NUS here to develop a set of curriculum. So we need academia, we need philanthropy, we need corporate. We can't do this alone. I was in an earlier panel and they essentially said the same thing, right, that we all have to be part of the solution, and we all need to be a part of solving the problem. I would say that this panel is on education, but this is more of a future problem, not just an education problem.
Right, so true. let's just wrap up this bit, and I'm going to ask you just if you have one piece of advice you could just offer the audience, offer all of us to take away regarding how we or our companies or places that we work in, how can we bridge that digital divide in education? What would you say?
Should I start?
Yeah, please go ahead.
My one piece of advice would be in the classroom because my heart is there. So I would say we should invest in training the teachers to use technology to meet the learners where they are, because we are, if we are building an equitable future, it's not about test score. It's about the context. It's about the learners' community, their dream, their future career. So if we design policy and system with the learners' success, learning outcome at the center of this, we would, it would ensure that our system can provide the outcome that we want to see.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Did you want to have a comment?
I would
Kate?
just echo the words that I said before around trust, localism, and it needs to be a cross-sector approach. We all have to be a part and be a part of the solution and make sure that we have community at the center of that.
Okay, cool. So now, actually, we're going to go into Q&A session. I think on the screen you've got a QR code if you want to post your questions. This is your opportunity to ask the last question, your last questions. Any questions that you have for these two fantastic panelists we've got up here? Okay, so we've got some coming in. Can AI also help with holistic education, learning to be and learning how to live in society? I hope I got that right? Learning how to be and learning how to live. Does anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that one from an angle of the different project that I worked on with indigenous population that we are working with in the Philippines. We get them to ask questions about their own community, and the way they ask questions, they kind of have a conversation with AI in order to understand themselves, right? So that's one way you kind of have a sounding board. I have this idea of doing this project in my community. What do you think? Right? And also, when they go out and collect data from their community, AI can also help them structure their data collection. They are now, when you get them started, you cannot ask them to stop. Now they collect food recipe, local songs, lullaby, getting older people in the community to interview and tell them about the local history of their community and the local wisdom. And in that process of interacting with AI and people, they learn the process of problem solving and creation. Yeah, so I think that's just one example.
Can I just add on to that?
Yeah.
I think we have to also remember that AI is a tool. We need to make sure that we continue to have a human in the loop, right? We're talking about the great things of data and AI. I'm a big proponent of that. But we also have to make sure that, again, you have local context, that the cultural context, one terminology may mean something very different. And you also have to remember, what is the AI trained on? What context, what cultural context? Global North context, you have to make sure that a human is in the loop and all of that.
Right.
And so I think that's very important to make sure that we always remember this is a tool. The other piece I would just like to put out there, we're talking about education, but I would also possess that we can't forget the maturing, aging population. That is also about being, right? And so, the elderly, they're living longer. I read an article, 70 is the new 53. I'm not sure about that because I'm close to 50, so I don't know if I'm 20 or 30. But we also have to make sure that population is have skills around data and AI for scams, for supporting their own businesses as they continue to be in the workforce a little bit longer. So I would say that being is the full cycle. We talked about continuing education earlier. The full cycle of what we think about education should be the gamut from K through 12, through university, through community college, through hands-on learning, but also when we think about maturing populations, making sure they have skills to continue to develop those. So that could be a being, and also to think about always the human in the loop and how important that is.
Right. And one thing that you said earlier, which I thought was quite interesting when you were talking about contextualizing, was you said that the word definition is really important. Like in some places you've got the word operation. It actually means hysterectomy. I was like, what? Okay. So like, okay, you can't just use the word operation just like that, because it means a totally different thing in a different country. So yeah. So I'm going to skip to the next question. We've got quite a number, by the way. How do you intend to scale these efforts such that education institutions can tap into this tech to further tailor education? I don't know why it's not. It tells me I've got to show more. Okay. Scale these efforts such that education institutions can tap into this tech to further tailor education to the learner.
Yeah, for High Touch High Tech, we are in conversation with the government of Cambodia. And we also remind ourselves that we are not the government, right? So we cannot be the one who scale, but we are so eager to give them advice and suggestions and, the lesson learned from our sweats and tears, right, on how to make the scaling of the program successful. For the government of Cambodia, our initial suggestion would be to scale in the small number first before they go like the national scaling. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that the whole curriculum is customized and localized. Because currently, like for the High Touch High Tech pilot, we only localize the numerical topics, right? So it's a lot of work to do curriculum customization, teacher professional development, and also the infrastructure to make sure that there's enough computer and good connectivity for everybody. In the Philippines, we are working with private sector and local government to scale from the ground up. The municipality of Sambales, where we piloted, they just can't wait to do more and get more students into High Touch High Tech. So they, the politicians, the local politicians are leveraging the local corporates, local company to help. And even the teachers, even the parents, they are asking whether the students can use Khan Academy at home using the parents' phone. So I think it's the whole system coming together to make quality learning happen in the classroom for their children.
That's great. I think this is sort of connected, if I can just read this out. How can we break down barriers between learners and solution developers? Political and institutional barriers preventing closer alignment and alignment can be very vast and seem very hard to overcome. Oh, well, it's slightly extended. Sorry. Go ahead.
Before I answer that question, I do just want to address how solutions can be scalable. And I believe that for Data.org, democratizing data is a huge pillar of ours. And that also comes down to digital public goods. How do we make sure solutions that are developed are free resources, that we develop curriculums through every one of our capacity accelerator network, from financial inclusion to responsible AI to how to use R, early stages of R. All of that is on our website and free for you to use and free to share with communities. I think another part of that is making sure that we're able to upskill policymakers so that they can be have data knowledge-driven decisions, right? And so how do you think about upskilling the government of India? We're working very closely with the CBC there to make sure that all of our courses are available for them to now start to use data and how they're making decisions and looking at their data sets. So I think that is a big piece of that. But to, I believe, go back to your earlier question, I mean, that's a tough one, right? I think that it has to be about partnerships.
Yeah.
I would also like to add one good example. There could be many, but the one that I have been impressed about is the government of Korea, South Korea, that they are using an ecosystem approach. So they are building different alliance from the technology developer, right? So nothing is like always free. So they want to make sure that the developers of AI technology also has a space in this ecosystem. So they're growing ecosystem of education, edtech developer for AI technology. They are growing alliances on the university side, non-profit, government officials, and schools and community. So they are trying to make different pieces of jigsaws talk to each other more and create win-win situations for everybody to grow together.
It's very interesting indeed. I'm going to go to one question and then I'll group another three together. So this one question is, how challenging is it to use AI in non-English languages like Thai, Khmer, and Tagalog? I think you kind of alluded to it already, but is there anything you want to both add to that answer?
It's very challenging because there are many dialects and local languages in Southeast Asia, in the Philippines. I think there are hundreds, and there are lots of languages that do not have scripts, so it's just like verbal languages. So I think, well, in our other project, we also want to capture those language and make sure that it's feed into the AI system. But in the classroom setting, it can be too expensive to do that. But so far, in Cambodia, the technology is good enough to do basic translation for the students to understand math. There are problems that we have identified that we need to, it's also data that feed into the system. So I think the system will get better and better. I want to share what we learned in the Philippines. When we started working with Khan Academy, all the teachers in the Philippines say, there's no need to do translation. We are good at, we can do this in English. But then when we actually implement, we realize that even if the translation is not needed, customization and localization is really critical. So it's not about the word that you use, but the deeper context that would help the students learn what motivate. If this example is maybe a favorite sport might be boxing or football in Thailand. In the Philippines, it would be basketball. That motivates the youth better. So, I think it's very difficult, but we are learning, and I think the system is also in the process of very fast optimization. I still think that the very local dialects and sub-languages would be something that we would really like to work on. I'm from Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I cannot read and write my language already. The language that used to be spoken and written in northern Thailand, we lost that in my generation, and I don't want. And I have this strong feeling that with AI, we can pull collective knowledge that's left, right, and preserve language and other cultural heritage that we have so rich in our region and make that last.
Yeah. I'm going to try and group some of these questions because I think we're kind of nearing our time. So how do we continue to ensure student well-being with increased interaction with AI is one. can I have the presentation slides of this? Is another one. So yes, right? And the third one is, while the use of AI can be useful, would you consider what is important to also focus on the ethics of AI? And what are some of the fears you see about AI in education? Is there any reticence, and if so, how do you overcome it? I know that's like a lot of questions in one, so I'm just going to ask if you, Komeki, you want to start taking those that you remember.
I think, yes, I actually think that we're at a time now that we still have an opportunity to make sure that AI is responsible and can be developed responsibly. So I still believe that we still have time. Again, I have a philosophy as well as data.org that you have to move at the speed of trust and not necessarily the speed of technology. So I would put that out there. I do believe there's a lot of mistrust in data and AI, right? We see in the US that, especially in the education system, that disenfranchise or certain populations in the school system, AI is already trained to think that they certain populations, certain demographics should have harsher punishments for infractions. They should have different materials, whether they are remedial or not. So AI already has those biases built in based on the norms and the data that is already inside the system. So I believe one of the biggest fears is the biases that are already in the system because of the data and who provided the data. To go back to when we were talking about who needs to be a part of this, to go back to Satya's point, that we need to make sure there's local language and local context. You need more than just Google Translate. That is not enough to translate materials in a way, not just that students can understand, but to also understand the cultural context of what people are learning. And so I think there's a lot that still needs to be done with AI. I believe that we still have an opportunity to make sure there's a social impact lens, there are responsibilities, there are, I don't want to use the word guidelines, but are there frameworks that we should really be involved in, community involved in, not just the for-profit sector, in how we're shaping data and AI. I think that was like 2 or 3 of the questions that you asked.
You did well. You did well. Satya.
Yeah, I think for the ethical use of AI, we should promote the understanding of the youth that they own the data, right? The data sovereignty, and they also need to understand that when they want to collect data from others, they also need to respect other people's data as well. Like in the ethnic minority youth that we work with, before they interview their grandmothers or in the elderly in their village, we encourage them to ask for permission. And then, after they collect data, EDC doesn't take those data. It's stored and curated within their community. And the community make decision whether they want to share it or whether, what they want to do with the data. But then we also want them to understand that data is important asset for their community and for themselves, and be able to use that data ethically, know their own rights, and also do not infringe other people's rights.
So I think that's really interesting because both of you are like enablers of data. So you don't keep the data, which I think is very, very, is very respectful. So I just thought that was a very, very good thing. To your point about data sovereignty, I think it's becoming much more sensitive now. So thank you. And there's one more question, well, there's quite a few, but how can we use AI for philanthropy, education among people, how to donate? I think...
Give to data.org.
Let's give it Okay.
But no, seriously, I believe data and AI is a very good vehicle to support organizations to craft personas, to do deep thinking for it, of curating a list of funders that could be interested in your areas, but also how do you support the operations of that? So I actually do believe data and AI can be very transformative in the philanthropy space.
Right.
And then to also think about supporting how you also articulate the impact of that. So I think, again, data and AI is a tool that we should use to support the operations, to help us get to some frameworks. But again, I don't want to remove the human in the loop of all that, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, to me, these are people's lives. This is not about the tool.
Yeah. I wanted to just highlight to the question about student well-being. I think, Satya, you mentioned earlier you have a mental health chatbot. How's that going?
This is a chatbot that the students or the learners can ask questions and share their feelings. It's not a counselor, so it would be, providing, acting as a listening ear and direct them into resources and ask them reflective questions so that they can think about what they are feeling and try to digest their own mental health challenges. So the youth can actually interact directly with this chatbot. We do not store their data. It's the way for them to identify the early signs and understand their complex feeling. So if you are interested, you can reach out to me. I don't lead this chatbot project, but I can connect you to the people who do.
Okay. I think that's very interesting too. Thank you. Okay, maybe one more question. I think this one is, the application is free and eligible to duplicate to other countries. I think this is a question about whether or not the software that you use, I assume in Cambodia and Philippines, whether or not that is free and can be used in other countries. Forgive me if I've got it wrong, but I think that's what the question is referring to.
The Khan Academy is free right now, so it might not be localized into all languages, so please go check whether it's, the service is provided in your language. The math pathway in Cambodia is not free. It's owned by a startup in Australia that used to be a Teach for Australia alumni. We know math pathway because we partner with Teach for Cambodia as our implementation partner in Cambodia, and they introduced us to this really powerful tool. They are trying to make it cheaper and more accessible. So if you are interested, I can also connect you to Math Pathway as well.
I think I've got everything. Hang on a minute. Well, I've got this one. Do you think AI education will have a profound impact on the way we teach kids? A lot of programs push knowledge instead of being driven by kids' interests. Do you think AI will be able to change this? I think we sort of alluded to that in terms of self-discovery and customized learning, right? So I think we've kind of answered that question. If not, let me know. Yeah, I think we've got all the questions now. So I guess if there are no other questions, it just remains for me to thank you as a fantastic audience. Thank you very much for your engagement. And to thank these two lovely ladies here for sharing your wisdom and your experience. You know, I've benefited so much and I've learned so much in this process. And, you know, I wish you all the very, very best, and, you know, to keep in touch and to keep going. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.